Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today the topic is very interesting and very debatable that whether our CI and CD pipeline should be integrated in one or should they be a separate pipelines. So today we'll understand the pros and cons of separate and unified CI/CD pipelines, which will help you to design the pipeline for your team, for your future job, for future opportunities, for future project, and you'll be able to make correct decision that whether you should have a separate pipeline, CI and CD should be separate or it should be a unified. So let's understand the trade-off or differences between the two. So when we before starting, every engineering team wants that, their deployment should be faster and should be safe. So always, question occurs that, what should be our strategy? Should to make the deployment faster plus safer, should we have the CI and CD in one as a one pipeline, or should we have the CI and the CD part separate? So let's go and understand this more deeply. Basically, our motive is that when we code, it should be built, it should be tested, and it should be deployed. So this is the procedure that we should follow when any application is, from the scratch, when we are coding it till the point when we are going to deploy that application. So what we mean by CI? CI means continuous integration, means whenever a developer pushes any changes in code, the CI is building building the artifact, or compiling the code, build code, build code, test it, and then create an artifact. So this is a starting point of CI, that our code is there, which gets built, it gets tested, and it create an artifact. So this create an artifact is a ending point of CI. Whenever there is any change that developer is pushing, so with every change, a CI pipeline gets triggered, and those changes are tested and artifact is created. Maybe artifact can be a jar, it can be a jar file, it can be a jar, it can be a var, it can be a tar, or it can be a Docker image. Okay, so this is how this is what we mean by CI. That whenever there is a change in a code, continuously our code is getting tested, okay, and artifact is getting created. So this is CI. Then the CD part is, so for CD part, the starting point is from the artifact or from the Docker image. It will try to deploy the code artifact in different environments. So maybe it will deploy the code in the staging environment or a pre-production environment. So this is how CI and CD has been differentiated. So uh, when we say separate pipelines, when we say CI and CD as separate pipelines, so that means that CI or should we write separate pipelines. This means that CI will be different. We can CI will get triggered first, and then once our artifact is created, then the CD workflow has to be created, which if with required inputs to be given, because inputs will be required, because this is a separate because CI and CDs are separate, so CD will require inputs, approvals will be required, and then it will do the deployment uh, in lower environments first, so that to check that whether our application is running fine, uh, and then afterwards, if it's a successful deployment, then same deployment is done on the more high environment. Like after development, it will go to staging, then from staging it will go to production, and maybe in production we will have to require approvals. Approvals are required. For that we have to, there can be Jira tickets, there can be some release management tool which is integrated in production. This is separate pipeline. Okay, when when we say separate pipeline, so this is what we mean by that CI/CD will be running separately. When we say unified pipeline, it means that both CI and CD are integrated in one. So this when we talk about unified pipeline, what comes that it will reduce the deployment time. Because here, if you can see, it will first the CI will run, then after that we will have to pass the required input in CD, then there will be uh, what you say, there will be approval stages, then after that the feedback will be there, that okay, this code is working in this environment. But if we talk about unified pipeline, here the deployment time has reduced, because once our pipeline will get triggered, it will end up after doing the deployment. So in that case, what will happen, that we'll get the result that our application is running fine or not in lesser time than the separate pipeline. But yeah, both have the pros and cons, and we'll discuss about that. So the pros and cons for so I think let's have a new separate page where we are discussing the pros and cons for separate pipeline, and here we will have triangle unified pipelines. So first of all, we'll talk about that, the pros of unified, or you can say pros of the separate pipelines and the unified pipelines. Easier isolation. What do you mean? What I mean by easier isolation means, even if CI fails, CD is not blocked, because both are separate. Okay, so this is easier isolation. Then reusability. Well, I'm giving one word so that it is easier for you to remember instead of giving long sentences. So reusability means the same artifact that, or the same Docker image that we created in the CI pipeline, we can use the same artifact to deploying it in dev environment also, in prod environment also, because in dev the same artifact got tested, and because it was running fine, we'll upgrade the same image or same artifact to environment, means staging. After there also the testing is done, then we'll upgrade that environment, same thing, same artifact or image in the production. So reusability is happening across multiple environments. Okay. Third thing is more control over approval, because when we want to control, we want that there should be one stop where after approval only the cd should happen, the deployment should happen. So that way we can if we have separate pipelines we can control this, but that cannot be controlled in unified pipeline, because once the pipeline get triggered we cannot stop it. There are many other ways, but if we see, logically, the approval cannot happen in between. We cannot, uh, we can cancel the workflow. But in between, if we are want the approval stage to be integrated, we need to, you know, uh, integrate the approval in the same code, and we have to put logics that become more complex, that if it is because if we want approval only for production, and what kind of approval do we need, mail approval, or do we need some ticket approval, ticket should be created. So in unified pipeline that gets more complex, but in separate pipeline we get more control over approvals. So these are the pros for separate pipelines. Now we discuss the pros for the unified pipelines. Uh, to set up, it is simpler to set up, and this is actually when you have small team, or when the application is not that complex. So that's for that unified pipeline is best. Second thing is faster feedback loop. What I mean by faster feedback loop means that we can instantly see that our code that got built, when it got deployed in the environment, it was the application was running fine or not. So instant feedback we get. Okay, and this is easier to trace because there is uh, one pipeline. One pipeline means one deployment has happened. Logs and everything are clear. Log the in log we will find in one place, we'll find that deployment has also happened, what got deployed, what image got deployed, what artifact. So traceability is very clear. Now we'll discuss the cons for both. So now cons are for separate pipelines, um, more complex coordination, because we have to see that if when CI has run successfully, then CD has to be run and the input should be correct, the same artifact that we got built, so that coordination is required. Then the second thing is slower feedback loop. So I've already explained this so of course the feedback that we'll get after deployment will be slower, which is faster in unified pipeline. Now the cons for unified pipelines are, this is for the these are only the cons for the separate pipelines. Now the unified pipeline cons are harder to manage approvals. So that we understood that it will become very complex if we include it in a uh, pipeline, and then it can be risky because once the pipeline has been run, it will do the deployment and on the environment, and maybe even if it is in a lower environment, maybe it can break something, so that we don't know. So it can be risky, and then it is not manageable for multiple environments. It become very complex again for managing it for multiple doing the because every time when you run the pipeline, every time new artifact will be getting created and every time it will do the deployment. So here the reusability was there, but here we cannot reuse the same uh, unless and until we hard code that artifact. We cannot reuse the same image or the same artifacts, because every time you run it you will be wanting it to deploy it in new environment. Every time it will be, because CI and CD are integrated, so it will create a new image and that image will get deployed in. So maybe because the code is same, so it won't break anything, but yeah, reusability is not there. and we don't know, it can be risky. And again, it is not manageable for multiple environments, hard to manage approvals, and it can be risky, as I said. Separate pipelines, and when should we choose unified pipeline? So why choose separate pipelines? um, when we have to, uh, there are multiple environments, and this is more uh, more better approach, because it is scalable, it is reusable. So that's why we should choose separate pipelines. And because deployment will require approval, so that's why this we should choose, because it is easy to manage approvals. Whatever kind of approval you need mail, ticket, any approval. Then different teams, if managing CI and CD, then we should have separate CI CD pipeline. And then you are in a more regulated domain, so this is a more better approach. Like finance, health, when you are in a more regulated domain, then yes, we should choose the separate pipeline at that time. Then why should we choose unified pipeline? Okay, so why should we choose unified pipeline? Because unified CI and CD, small team, and you want to optimize speed of deployments. Then low risk is there. Even if something breaks, there will be lower risk. And you want minimum tool complexity. You don't want because you are not using that much tool in between. If you are using Jira or something and you are not doing that much, then uh, yes, you can go for unified pipelines. Then there is hybrid approach too. What is hybrid approach? Hybrid approach is when we are, your CD part is being taken care by a tools called Argo CD or Flux CD. So instantly when but these tools requires your repo to be in certain structure. But what you do here is in CI, once your image gets updated in a YAML file, these tools will instantly pick the new image and will do the deployment. So they are actively, monitoring the uh, changes in YAMLs. And yeah, this is also one approach. But yeah, this tool will be added. So that's all for today's video. I hope it's helpful. Please let me know your views in the comment section. Till then, take care. Bye.